Hello, welcome to another exciting week of the NASCAR Show here on the Grueling Truth. We have an exciting show for you today. A lot of action this week in the Truck and Xfinity Series anyway. But before we get started, I want to let you know that the Grueling Truth is powered by Betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online casino or sports book that's right for you. Ryan, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Just got done running a few laps on my racing wheel upstairs and got a nice 25th place finish. So I think I'm ready to go.
Steve, what about you?
First off, it's not how you guys doing tonight. It's still 4 o'clock in the afternoon here. It's sunny,
we don't live in
about
Malibu.
75 degrees, and absolutely freaking beautiful. Took dogs on a walk and washed my truck, and there's a lot of other fun things. Watched a couple new shows on Netflix. So,
well, Steve, I'll tell you what. Ryan and I here in Southern Indiana. I don't know. I think
you got a little bit of rain there, aren't you?
Well, we're going to get done with this show, and then we're going to head into our storm shelter because that's what everybody's advising today.
Bad weather there.
All right, let's get into our show.
Hoosier people can handle it. Don't worry about it. Californians out here, we get a quarter of an inch of rain, and you think the world would come to an end.
Yeah, Californians can't handle shit.
They can't handle crap. It is hilarious to get on the interstate and watch these idiots. But first off, they don't understand about a crowned interstate at all out here. You know, generally when you're building an interstate, you crown it so water will flow off to one side or the other. They build these nice flat interstates out here, and the water just pools everywhere. And
well, you can do that in the desert.
You got all these jockeys in these little Ferraris that weigh about 1,800 pounds, and they get on the hydroplane track, and then they're going backwards more than they're going forward, or the ass end's going forward more than the front end's going forward. It's actually ridiculous out here. This whole town floods with a half inch of rain or more. It literally floods.
Yeah, and that's why I don't encourage anybody to move to California.
Unless you know, if you want beautiful landscape, you want the ocean, and you want to see some smoking hot babes, it is the place to be.
You can get that in Myrtle. You can get that in Myrtle Beach, Steve.
I guess you can.
All right, let's get on with the show. We're going to talk about the minor leagues for just a second, but before we do, in case my sister Jennifer's watching, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
So let's talk about the truck
Sorry you have
race.
any relation to Joe at all.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's talk about the truck race just a little bit. William Byron comes out with his first win of the weekend in the truck race, right? Is that correct?
Well, yeah.
Pretty
as far as I know.
Do I need to fact check everything you say now?
Probably. I just make shit up as I go, Steve.
I just watched The View this morning for the first time.
They make shit up as they go.
They make shit up as they go. You got to fact check everything on that stupid show. Because that Joy Behar, she's about the dumbest woman I've ever seen in my life.
I agree.
Holy cow.
Anyway, currently in the truck series, William Byron did take the win this week at Martinsville. Zane Smith is currently leading that series. We won't go into it too much. Let's move on to the Xfinity. We have a little bit to talk about there. Of course, we all know Brandon Jones won, but that's not quite the story of the Xfinity race this weekend, is it?
No, it's a little bit more of a backwards result from what happened at Richmond in terms of Joe Gibbs' teammates.
You're right. So let's just talk
a little bit of fireworks after that.
Right. So obviously we're talking about the fight, right? And what I saw, Ty Gibbs basically got payback for what he did the week prior, and he didn't handle it as well as I thought he would. Steve, what do you think about that?
Well, my attitude is, and it goes against everything that Ryan worships, and I'm all for have at it, boys. No problem with me. I think there's nothing funnier though than watching 240-pound, 5'4" white guys with helmets on bitch slap each other silly on TV with their helmets on. I mean, it's kind of entertaining, but I'm all for it. Let them have at it. The one thing I don't like, and well, I'll just make my statement now. Ryan was last couple of weeks been bitching and pissing and moaning about how NASCAR's letting him fight too much and letting him carry on, and his good old boy crap doesn't really fly. You know, funny, Ryan, how the fines came out yesterday, and they fined Gibbs. I don't even remember the money amount, but they fined him for using his car.
Which he did.
Which he did, but he did not get a fine for getting out of his car and bitch slapping the other guy. All right, so it's kind of like, hey, we don't want you taking that car
Steve,
and running into somebody else and hurting somebody, but you can get out of the car and bitch slap each other all you want to, because that's good for TV ratings. Yeah. And here we are. That's all we're talking about is the little bitch slapping incident going on in the pits after the race. So my mentality stands as usual. Rubbing is racing, and let's have at it, boys.
Is that all you're going to give Ty Gibbs? Is that was a bitch slap? I saw a good jab and a right cross.
It was a cheap shot too.
Yeah, it was. Ryan, what do you think about the fight?
Kind of going backwards. We've talked on this show about what is racing and what's not racing, and you know, I said last week against Richmond that I had no problems with Ty Gibbs moving, you know, his teammate John Hunter Nemechek. It was a bump and run. He ended up doing the same thing as Brandon Jones did this week to him. Now, Ty Gibbs said that he expected John Hunter Nemechek to give him a payback, and that was all fair. But the funny thing is when Brandon Jones did the same thing that Ty Gibbs did, he didn't handle it very well. And that's something that, you know, we'll see the way that Ty Gibbs matures. It's no doubt how talented he is. It's how is he going to mature as a race car driver? And, of course, everybody wants to compare him to, you know, my favorite driver and Kyle Busch due to the attitude. But Kyle Busch is not the one out there trying to – I think he would have handled it a lot differently than what Ty Gibbs has done so far. You know, the only incidents I can think of Kyle getting in an actual fisticuffs was with Joey Logano, and he did take his helmet off when he did that. Now, he did get his ass kicked by the Jackman for Joey Logano, but that's neither here nor there.
Yes, he did.
But at the end of the day, I think what he was more upset about is that he should have won at Martinsville last year and he didn't. He should have won at Martinsville this year and he didn't. And whenever somebody does the same thing that he has had done to, or that he does to other people, he doesn't handle it that well. And if Ty Gibbs wants to be a race car driver that's going to have a lot of success, every time somebody does something that is done to him, he can't go around fighting people. And I know that, you know, fighting does bring this sport along. I mean, literally that's what happened with Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison for the Daytona 500, and what put NASCAR on the map whenever it had its first live race. But my argument this whole time, as long as people aren't wrecking each other, nobody wrecked. I mean, you know, Ty Gibbs ended up getting 3 wide, and that's the reason why he got in a fight with Sam Mayer. He didn't get in a fight with Brandon Jones, his teammate that bumped him for the lead. He got in a fight with the guy battling for $100,000. And what ends up happening is AJ Allmendinger then goes, I'll watch you two fight, and then I'll go win $100,000 real quick. And right. I think it just added all up. And it'd be one thing if he didn't literally do it the previous week and say, you know what, this is racing. And then the very next week goes up to somebody, doesn't take his helmet off and go, you know what, this is bullshit. And, you know, and that's where I have my issue. You know, if you're going to give it, you got to be able to take it. And, you know, he needs to be able to find a way to do that.
Yeah.
Amazing how brave one is when grandpa owns the car.
Yeah.
You know, let's put him down on some regular equipment that normal young kids coming up through the ranks have to drive. And,
I have something
to
say about the whole incident. So I think, Ryan, you're absolutely right. Ty Gibbs probably should have won this week. He was running a great race. However, he probably should have won. However, he ends up in the number 2 position. He gets bumped. You know, Rubbin's racing. I agree with all that. I agree with Sam.
He actually finished behind number 2. He didn't finish number 2. He finished
no. He was in the 2nd place position when all that happened.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. My apologies.
I don't have a problem with what Sam Mayer did to him. I don't have a problem with it at all. I think that they were racing. I think he was racing for $100,000 and he was trying to advance his spot. I don't even have a problem.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with Ty Gibbs after the race is over, going up and hitting Sam Mayer in the ass. I don't have a problem with that. I think that was letting him know, hey, I'm pissed at what you just did. You just took $100,000. You know, I was probably out of reach of the win at that point, but you just took $100,000 out of my pocket. I don't have a problem with what he did there. I don't have a problem that they went on pit road and decided to fight. The only issue that I have is he climbed out of his car. He started a fight with Sam Mayer. He threw the first punch, and he was not man enough, I guess is the right word, to take his helmet off before he started throwing punches. And I think that's absolutely bullshit. I am a fan of the sport, as we all are, and I think that I was a fan of Ty Gibbs, and it's going to take me a little bit to come back from that. I don't know that I'm going to root for him for a while because I just felt like that was an unmanly move. And I'm okay with all the slack and all the things that are being said about him right now. I think it's good that he takes that all in and realize, hey, if you're gonna run around and act tough, you need to at least give your opponent in a fight the same opportunity that you have. So that's where I'm at. Steve, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like I said, I think it was fine. It was fine all along. We got some fodder to chaw on. Here we are. We aren't even talking about the race. We're talking about the fight. We're talking about the people involved in the fight. Personally, who I think should have won that race was Brandon Jones because he won the race.
I agree.
You know, it just went there. I mean, that's what the sport's all about. That's why they keep fenders on those cars, so they can rub and tag each other at the end. And you know, so I think of Chase Elliott's rookie year. How many times did that guy get bumped out of the lead on the last lap? I mean, I think it happened to him at Dover. It happened to him in Martinsville. It happened to him at Bristol. You know, for a while, Hamlin had his number. And then last year, you know, Harvick has his number. I'm not bitching about it. Just get over it, Chase. It's racing. Retaliate. Go back and get him. I still, to this day, do not believe Chase Elliott has retaliated enough on Harvick for what Harvick did to him. You know, he kind of got him in Martinsville or Bristol, the last race, where he just kind of pulled up in front of him and blocked him when he was 2 laps down. That was kind of good, but you know, I do think they should keep the cars out of it. If they want to go back behind the wall or in the pits and bitch slap each other till they're blue in the face, let them do it. It's entertainment. It's like the WWE. They're not going to hurt each other. I agree. I think it's good. I don't think it's what the sport should be. It should be about the racing and about the talent of the drivers and the strategy by the pit crew chiefs and all that. It shouldn't be about the fights, but when one pops up, you know, it's better than listening to some dumb reporter ask somebody who just got done racing a car for 400 laps the stupidest questions in the world. How are you feeling about your drive right now? Well, I'm a little tired, and I'd really like to, you can't say what he really wants to say.
Well, Steve, people love that shit. They love to watch fights. That's
driver can.
Love.
What?
So,
your driver?
I said my driver can say what he wants. Yeah.
I've never heard Kyle Busch say what he's thinking, what he really wants to have happen after a race like that. He wants to go back to the trailer and
we're going to move on from it. Currently, right now,
his coach.
To round out talking about the minor leagues here, AJ Allmendigger's currently leading the Xfinity Series, followed by Ty Gibbs, Noah Gragson, Brandon Jones, and Josh Berry. So we're going to move past.
What about the truck race? We got some. We know Chase Elliott's going to run in the truck race this year. He's going to drive this week. He's going to drive the 5 truck for Hendrick Motorsports.
You're right. We were going to get to that, Steve.
Oh, I thought we were wrapping up the minor leagues.
Yeah, we are, but that's more of the next week race preview.
Well, then don't lead off with as we wrap up the minor league. Just say.
Well, that hadn't happened yet, Steve.
Okay.
We haven't got to that point in the show.
Well, let's get to that point.
Anyway, the one and only Mike Goodpasser has chimed in, and apparently he didn't like my unmanly move comment. I think he would have preferred that I said something else. But
you know what? If he's listening, Goodpasser, you're on vacation. Go find your wife and go take a walk. Leave us alone. Let us do our show. Good God.
Oh, man.
There's got to be a Wendy's around there somewhere.
Jeez.
Or no, go to Burger King. They have that Impossible Burger. Since you're on an all vegetarian,
that I would not eat, and
I
would
wouldn't
submit
either,
to you that only a liberal would eat the Impossible Burger.
Well, that's good, Pastor.
So, hey, let's talk.
These things that come out of the ground.
I thought maybe Ryan would have thrown a flag at that. And Ryan, I would not have worn a Cincinnati Reds T-shirt after learning the Castellini's feelings on the Reds and the fans of Cincinnati, and after they gave up 6 runs in the 9th inning last night. So I wouldn't know. That would not have been my shirt of choice. But let's move on to our picks.
You see what Goodpasser came back with? I'm not a fat ass. He's talking about you, Joe.
What?
Look at that. I think you should block him. Block him.
I don't know that we could block the.
Oh yeah, he blocks fans all the time when he doesn't like what they say.
Right.
I would just block him.
I don't know that if we block him, if we could keep doing the show, it might block all of us out of this. So no, I'm not going to do that. I don't know why he called me a fat ass, but that's okay. I mean, I am, but let's talk about our picks from last week.
Mike, goodbye. We're going to ignore you from this point forward. So whatever you say, whatever you do, we're not even going to acknowledge that you're writing in. So you're done.
He was talking about both of us.
Yeah, I know. And I've lost weight already.
So last week, Steve, you picked Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, and Kyle Busch.
Well, that's my last time doing that.
Yeah, you got 1 point for Chase Elliott, and you got 1 point for Kyle Busch, which gave you the weekly total of 2 points.
There you go.
You didn't do that bad. 2 points. We've had worse weeks, I think.
Yep.
Ryan, you picked Martin Truex, Joey Logano, Bell, Elliott, and Keselowski. You got 2 points for Logano. He finished in the top 5. And you got 1 point for Elliott, who finished in the top 10. So your grand total for this week was 3 points.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah, that's not bad. We've had worse weeks. I picked Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, and Martin Truex. I got 1 point for Kyle Busch, 2 points for Ryan Blaney, 1 point for Chase Elliott, which brought my grand total for the week to 4 points. Currently on the season, Steve, you have 13 points. Ryan, you have 11. And I'm still winning with 18. So, and unless you guys could get your shit together, I'm probably going to win this thing, even though there's 30 races left.
Yeah. 30 races.
There's 30 races left, and I'm leading by 5 points, so I'm probably going to take home the trophy.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
There's a lot of championship trophies given out in the first quarter of a lot of sports.
That's right. Well, I'm crowning myself the winner as of now, the 8th race into the season. I've done an amazing job. As you know, every week this segment is about me and how well and how good I do on my picks. So, I kicked your guys' ass again this week.
Congratulations on your before Easter trophy.
Thank you.
I ditto what he said.
All right.
I'm sorry that Ryan and I just don't have enough time to fact check and cross check all these things. We kind of just pop names out of our head when we're sitting here doing this inane thing. But you sit there probably instead. Obviously, based on the 6 pages of notes I got, God knows how much time you spend into picking your 5 drivers.
Not true, Steve. Not true. I do simple research and look at the drivers and their previous record on each course, and I determine from there who the best 5 should be. So, and I actually write an article every week that is published on thegruelingtruth.com that tells you my 5 top picks for the race. And you can find that article every week at thegruelingtruth.com. Thanks for the segue, Steve.
Good play.
Let's move on to this week's race. Let's move on to Martinsville. I know we had a post-race show. We kind of talked about the highlights. Ryan, what'd you call the race? The Follow the Leader 500?
400. They
400.
lost 100 laps, so thank God
Yeah.
it was only 400.
The Follow the Leader 400. And I think after the post-race show we did, Steve, which Ryan, you jumped in the last 10 minutes because you were in the ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese. I
cannot confirm or deny.
Better place to be.
I think, though, due to the lack of action in the race, I think it actually gives us a lot to talk about. We don't have much to talk about of what actually happened in the race. The race was what it was, right? We went out, we watched 402 laps, 401 laps, however long the race ended up being. And we saw 2 leaders and we saw 35 cars follow each other around the track for 401 laps or whatever, 402. And that pretty much sums up the race, right? But I think we need to talk about some comments that were made, and we're going to hit on the first thing I kind of want to hit on is what, in your opinion, Ryan, you can go first. What do you think NASCAR could do to make Martinsville more exciting, or what led to the race and the results that we got with no action?
I think a big part of it, number one, was the weather. It was around 40 degrees. That definitely changes things. And then it was brought to a lot of people's attention in the garage that they were going to use a different tire this year. And we talked about, you and I, a little bit more than Steve, thought that Richmond wasn't a bad race, and that's because we had tire degradation. Well, with the cold track not laying down rubber, and also a tire that wasn't laying down, wasn't tearing apart, we had no movers, comers, or goers in this race. And I think we literally just saw the worst possible scenario. We saw people shifting for the first time in this race at Martinsville, and I think you just kind of put all those things together, and it just led to a really terrible race. I hope what NASCAR doesn't do is overreach and throw down PJ1 to make a fake line. That's not why we like Martinsville. It's because of this, to me, fake racing line due to the fact that they're artificially laying down rubber. I think they need to get with Goodyear, figure out what they think and what the crew chiefs and drivers think would be the best tire component. Because, again, I'll allude to a different sport, Formula One. We already know what 3 compounds they use in Formula One the day of the race. That's not hidden. In NASCAR, you got to go to Fort Knox and try to get the combination to find out what the hell tire you're going to use this week and how it could change the racing format. So I think that's something that they can look at, is possibly bringing a new tire. I doubt that they're going to change the horsepower for it this year at least, but just these different things to where the racing's better. It creates more of a second line due to possibly the tire. And obviously we probably shouldn't be racing on the East Coast in April. I think if they could figure out a way to quit doing that, or at least race in the South to where you don't have fans and drivers racing when it's 35 degrees outside, that never sets up a good race anyway. You get these tracks when it's 90 plus degrees on the track, makes it slick, it makes it harder to drive, and usually is a better product.
Good take. Steve?
All right. I just wrote a book. Phew, Ryan, that's a lot of stuff there. First off, let me ask you a question, Ryan. You say you don't want her to throw down PJ1 because it creates a fake racing line. But what would you rather have done at Martinsville? Would you rather watch your your gosh darn parade, okay, of one lap, or would you rather have to throw down a second fake line and let them go racing? Because if there's a second line up there, then the cars, I don't care if it's fake or not. I mean, you put a second line up there, a second groove up there above the first groove, a little tougher decision to choose where you want to start, inside or outside. You want to take the outside lane, and you can get traction up there, and you can get a better dive into turn one, where there's chance for the upper car to have a chance to get to the lead on a restart. I mean, you say fake line. I don't think it's a fake line. I think it's an equalizing line. Right now, these cars are not set up for this track to be able to run 2 grooves. It's a combination of it's a brand new car. They're trying to figure it out. I bet this time next year, or the second race at Martinsville next year, there'll be two grooves again because they'll have dialed these cars in. But right now, throw a fake line up there and let them run. That was been a lot better race than sitting there and watch a parade of 5 cautions, 4 of them for, or 3 of them for stage wins. And the other 2 were just cars that brushed the wall and they threw a caution. They just wanted to bunch them up. So I'm all about right now throwing some PJ1 up there and creating a second groove to improve the racing, improve the sport, improve the competition, improve the fun of sitting there on a beautiful Sunday afternoon or a Saturday night or whenever and watching the race. So I throw the PJ1 down. In terms of tires, I would venture to say all teams know what the compound is on those tires long before the 24 hours before the race. I think they just don't broadcast it out like F1 does. F1 hasn't changed cars, really. They still have the same requirements. They didn't go through any major rule changes this year. So their cars are pretty much equivalent except for some aero package a little bit. But they come out and say, hey, these are the tires we're going to run all season long. Now dial your cars into these tires because we ain't changing our tires. Pirelli's making these tires or Michelin's making the tires. And these are the tires we're going to run. Now dial your cars into these tires. NASCAR does change it because NASCAR runs on significantly different compounds. They run some on concrete, some on old asphalt, some on new asphalt. It's completely different. They got to change it. Different bankings. Pretty much F1 is all flat track racing. There are no banks in F1. So therefore the tire degradation is going to pretty much be the same at every track, where you go to a track like Martinsville, which has got different banking than Richmond, which is different banking than Indy, which is different banking than Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, Phoenix. Every track's a different banking. So you're going to have different degradation. So I think all the things that you said they shouldn't do or is wrong with it, I think you missed the boat there on those, buddy. I'm all for throwing PJ1 down at Martinsville right now. That would have created a second line and would have gotten a lot better racing on that upper line. It would have made the upper line, would have probably compensated a lot for what they're screwing up with horsepower, which you and I agree with that. Put some more horsepower in these cars. Give them more go-go juice. These are professional race drivers in a very safe car on safe track. And get more horsepower on. Let these cars have some more acceleration to use the aero packages better and dive in. Give them that second groove. I think the teams all know what compound they're running. Probably the start of the week. I bet to say right now they know what the compound is at Bristol. Now that's probably not going to matter, at least of any of the races. It's a dirt compound, one-time run. But I just think that they just don't publicize what compound they're running as they do in F1. All right, that's my scalding.
Well, I disagree with a little bit of what you're saying, Steve, and I.
All right, what do you disagree with?
Look. Well, I don't even know if I want to call it a disagreement. I guess I disagree with Ryan. Ryan, you mentioned you don't think
changed.
that you don't think that horsepower is an issue, or you don't think that they need to add more horsepower, or to clarify, did you say?
I don't think they will.
I don't think they will.
I agree with Ryan entirely. They won't do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Why do you think that NASCAR will not give these cars more horsepower on a short track? Because let me ask you this. So we're running with a 670 package, right? Off the top of your head, if you go to a short track dirt race on any given night in any given dirt track across America and World Outlaws are running, what's the horsepower in those sprint cars?
Close to 900.
Yeah, it's about 900. It's about 900 horsepower, and that's a significantly lighter vehicle, right? I mean, I don't understand. NASCAR goes to these short tracks. Historically, short tracks are great races. And one combination that makes a great race at a short track is the acceleration out of the turns. I mean, you can only turn and go into those turns at what your cars can handle. But the acceleration out of the turn at short track dirt racing is what typically wins races. And when you hamstring the drivers with a weak car at a short track, I don't think PJ1's the answer, Steve, but I do think horsepower is the answers. And I think you give the drivers the ability to be better drivers than each other and not put them in a weak car on a short track where they have no power to get a run on people out of a turn. So, I mean, I think with the combination of how cold it was and rubber not being laid down on the track, I think that was huge. I think that's really ultimately what led to the very boring race. I think the horsepower would have not been so evident if rubber was being laid down and the drivers were handling their cars and coming out of those turns with a little bit more acceleration. But, you know, at the end of the day, you run that race every year in April. And in Martinsville in April every year, you have the potential for 40, 50-degree weather and that same issue. So certainly NASCAR knows about that. And I think, you know, you add another 100 horsepower. I mean, dirt modifieds, what are they? They're like 750 horsepower, between 750 and 800, I think. You know, add another 100 horsepower to those vehicles and let the drivers drive. I think maybe you can overcome the cold and some of the obstacles that we're sitting here talking about. And ultimately, we're talking about them because all three of us are pissed off that we wasted 4 hours to watch a boring race, I think. And I think a whole lot of fans that watched it are in the same position that we are.
Well, so. Yeah, and my point to comment back, we all three got agreement that they're probably not going to change the horsepower package. That's right. Not going to happen. They're pretty well committed to this 670 for the year. And I'm not sure that's not a bad thing. It is painful on the short tracks because I agree that you need more power to power out of the corners and get going and to be able to pass and possibly create a second groove. But that's not going to happen at this point in time. I think right now they're letting teams, there's just so much to figure out about this car and dial it in and get everything. The aero package is solid where they can, you know, I think you're going to see wholesale changes by the end of the year. That's a great thing about NASCAR. Because they're not corporately owned, they don't need a board of directors to change rules. You know, they'll just come back after a race and say, well, starting Monday, here's the new rule package. We're just going to lay this down to you. You got this week to do it. So in order to keep the fan base happy, the quickest and easiest solution is not to change and play around with horsepower packages. I mean, if they want to do that, fine, but they're not going to do that. Put PJ1 down, create a second groove, and let them race that way. They seem to be committed to this 670 horsepower right now.
Yeah, they are, and I agree. We're all in agreement that that's not changing.
Put PJ1 down and create that second groove and improve the quality of racing because there was no quality in racing.
Ryan, I do have a question. Ryan, I do have a question for you.
And Ryan, you know, I laid a lot of stuff out there. Hang on a second, Joe. What do you think about everything that I've said and what Joe said?
Ryan, before you answer, I want to remind everybody
Ryan, who are you going to listen
Grueling
to here?
Truth is powered by betting.net.
Oh.
Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online casino or sports book that's right for you. Ryan, go ahead.
I think the only thing that PJ1 down is it doesn't make a second groove. It changes the primary groove. They added PJ1 at Phoenix, and Phoenix wasn't a great race outside of restarts. It was great for restarts because they went 4 or 5 wide. It's, you know, probably 5 times wider, especially going into turn 1 and 2 than Martinsville. But at the end of the day, the only thing that PJ1 typically does is it artificially creates the new primary line. And, you know, they've done that with Bristol previously. Now we've had Bristol better since the repave. Normally they had the PJ1 on these short tracks after a repave because they want to try to make it 2-groove racing, and it just simply doesn't do that. It just changes. It moves the line up typically from the bottom, and they'll just end up running a middle groove. Going back to the 670.
All right, well, hold on. Let me can I address that real quick? Can you write notes like I do? Let me just address that. Okay. Okay. You're better than me. No, I take notes. You know, I'm borderlining on Alzheimer's and dementia. You know, I'm 63 years old. That stuff's around the corner for
You
me.
should run for office.
Yeah, shouldn't I? I remember with Chase Elliott in the Martinsville race dominating the first two segments. You know, led 180 laps in the first two segments. All right.
Right.
I also remember at the end of the second segment, he was bottlenecked up behind slower cars, and that allowed William Byron to get right up on his tail. He had a good 4.5 second lead over the second place car for the longest of time. Then he comes up on the lap traffic and bottlenecks it up. You put that PJ1 up there, all right, now you've created a second opportunity for him to get around that car, because the car in front of him was, I think it was Austin Dillon or somebody, who didn't want to go a lap down. And since Daddy owns his car, you know, he doesn't have to play by the normal rules, because Daddy will go in to NASCAR and say he'll quit giving him free wine if he does. But if you put that second groove, or at least that PJ1 up there, Elliott, who had clearly a faster car, could just push up there real quick and get a good run from the bottom on the first one, jump up the second, down one of the straightaways, and get enough of a groove to dive back into the turn and possibly get around him. And then, you know, and then all of a sudden that puts Dillon in a position. What does he do? Then maybe he gets out of the way. The problem is if Elliott had tried that now, because of the horsepower package, he would have gotten up on the second groove, and Byron would have just closed in on him, pushed him out of the groove entirely, locked him out, never been able to come back down, then would have been in 17th place. So I think that PJ1, as long as you're going to play with this light horsepower, is just an added benefit for racing all the way around. You're right. It might not create an entire second groove all the way around, but it will create passing opportunities when boneheads want to hog the bottom line that have slower cars and don't want to get out of the way. Or Elliott could have just bumped him, which is what he should have done. Put a chrome bumper on his ass and put him up into the wall. But he's not built that way to do that kind of stuff. Anyway, go back to where you were now.
If you can remember where you were, go back to it.
That's why I said write it down.
No, I don't need to write it down. I'm good.
Okay.
No, we're going back to the 670 horsepower. The reason why they won't do that, and the reason why they stuck to 670, actually, they didn't even want to go to 670. They made a very late change to go to 670, and that's because all the drivers bitched that this was not a good car at 550. And with about 2 months before the season started, they literally had to rush to OEM. And we'll actually maybe get to this later. It kind of ties into why Brad Keselowski's penalty happened. They made this decision that they wanted to get to 670, and they wanted to use more OEM parts and more universal parts. And the number one reason was to keep down cost. I think that NASCAR really is trying to get another manufacturer back in this sport, more than likely Dodge, or it could be another foreign manufacturer, possibly BMW, that was rumored at one time. So the thing that adding horsepower does is going to add cost to building these cars. And NASCAR does not want to do that at all costs. They want to make this as simple for a new manufacturer to get in, compete as quickly as they can. And maybe that's why we're seeing things like the way Trackhouse has been really, really good this year after only being in NASCAR for 2 years. Why they've been so competitive, because everybody has more of a level playing field based on these parts that NASCAR is giving out.
Well, if that's your goal to keep costs down, then I think NASCAR needs to take a real hard look at not putting these 670 cars on so many short tracks, and definitely not doing it 3 weeks in a row, whether you're going to race on dirt or not. You know, and Steve, go ahead and make your point real quick, because I think that takes us into another segment here.
Yeah, I don't know if this may be me being argumentative to a large degree, but you want to, you know, if you're worried about, first off, I don't think NASCAR or anybody's really doing anything. I think Hendrick, Gibbs, SHR, Road Showless Racing, they're spending every dime they can spend to make their cars better and faster. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So don't tell me that they're trying to keep costs down. If you want to keep costs down and let more entry-level teams come in, allow more charters. Why do we even have charters, period? You got 36 cars locked in. Even if you don't try to qualify, you still get to start the race. Here's a new team busting its butt, trying to get some prize money, trying to get into the race. And if you don't have a charter and you can't make, the top 30, well, you got to be, you're locked out because all these cars are offered charters. Get rid of the damn charters. That was a joke anyway. If you can't qualify your car, why should you run it? So I've never been a fan of the charter thing to begin with. Go back to the old days. Past champions get an entry.
Well, it does bring stability to the sport, and I understand your argument with that.
Stability? How? How does it bring stability to the sport?
Where are those charters going, Steve?
They're going to the top 36 cars. Teams that don't most of them teams that don't need them.
Okay.
I mean, you got Hendrick takes up 4 charters. Gibbs takes up 4 charters. Haas takes up 4 charters. Roush Yates has 4 charters. Crap, half the charters belong to 5, 6, or 7 teams.
Right, and what is that? 18 cars?
Well, I don't know. I haven't counted cars. I don't know how many of those teams have 4 and 3 cars. Penske only runs 3 cars, but then they run the Wood Brothers car as a. So I don't know if that charter belongs to Penske or Wood Brothers now. I don't know the answer to that question. I guess it's a Wood Brothers charter, or Wood Brothers may have sold it to Penske, and Penske leases it back to them. I don't know on the charters exactly, but the dominance of those charters really sit in the hands of 4, 5, or 6 teams. Was it Stackhouse Racing? Is that the one that took over Ganassi?
Trackhouse.
Yeah. Okay, they've got 3 charters, I would guess. So really the bulk of those charters. So now you've got all these lesser teams sitting here dogfighting it like crazy, trying to get enough power up to fight these guys that have these charters, which are guaranteed spots. That's horseshit. That's not racing. That's not Saturday night short track racing.
Well, no.
You go into heat qualifying and you run, and if you know what? If Steve Kinzer didn't get out of his heat, he didn't qualify for the main event.
Right. That
was the old dirt track racing. Now it's like, oh, well, we don't want Chase Elliott to miss the race because Chase is our most popular driver. Well, we have to have Chase in the race.
Steve, and you make an absolutely perfect point, because all week, all over social media, all we saw is people bitching and arguing, just like us 3 are doing right now. We are doing the same thing that every fan has been doing all week long, and bitching and complaining and talking about how do we make that better? What do we do to make these races more exciting? Haley Deegan apparently thinks that we should just cut the races in half, but we'll get into that. We're looking at a Martinsville race that had 1.8 million viewers, almost 1.9 million viewers this week, which has been the lowest watched race of the season. Granted, it was on Fox Sports 1 shortly after the Masters. There were some other things going on this week, but nobody tuned in to watch the race this week except people like us who are into NASCAR. And the few, like we talked on the post-race show, that did tune in to watch the race, that have never seen a race before, they'll never watch another one, I don't think. But the boring race and the racing, we've been so spoiled by some of the racing that we've had this year that we've had one bad race, one boring race, and everybody's losing their mind and talking just like you were about that's not Friday night dirt track racing. That's not Saturday night dirt track racing. You don't win your heat race. You don't make it into the show. You don't make it into the feature. And what did Kyle Busch say earlier or last week about the dirt track? He said, why I enjoy the dirt track. Kyle Busch said, dirt moves our sport backward, which he was actually referencing what the King had said 30 years ago. However, I think everybody.
And I agree with him. I agree with him on that too.
I think everybody, including us, whether or not I've said this before, my favorite form of racing is open-wheeled sprint car racing on Friday and Saturday nights at dirt tracks. I love to watch that. It's exciting racing. Doesn't get much more exciting than that. But we need to realize that dirt track racing may be the roots of NASCAR. It may be the foundation of NASCAR. But NASCAR, stock car racing on pavement, and the top circuit of auto racing in this country is not dirt track racing. And I think that every fan probably needs to get it out of their head at this point that this is a different sport than what you're going to watch at your local track on Friday night. It doesn't have the same rules. It doesn't have the same cars. It doesn't have the same money put into it. So I think that really when people make those comments, I think that's like I think sometimes that's like comparing baseball to softball, to use a reference, fast pitch softball and baseball. Yeah, the sports look similar. They have the same foundation, but as I recently learned, they are nothing alike. So, that's kind of where I'm at. I think we need to accept stock car racing, NASCAR, and the Truck Series, Xfinity, and the Cup Series is what they are, and that's a totally different sport than what it was, 80 years ago. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
But what's your point?
That was my point. Let's stop referencing what we're doing on dirt, what the foundation of the sport is, and look at what it's progressed to. That's my point. And I'm done ranting now, Steve. Ryan followed me. He was able to keep up with that.
You got that, Ryan?
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. I'm because all I'm seeing is them continue to try. What are stages? Stages is their own throwback to the way NASCAR used to be run. What they're really trying to do is create some competition in the middle of a boring 400-mile race to see if guys will sit there and run for stage points, which they turn into playoff points.
Right, and I don't have any problem with stages, Steve.
So they're doing a lot of that. They're trying to mix the boat here, and I don't care about that. I don't really care. I mean, I got three choices Sunday night. I can either watch the 10 Commandments because it's Easter. It's on every year on TV. I can either watch Bristol, or if I want to see some real dirt track racing, I'm probably going to turn on TBS and watch Ben-Hur, because that's usually on Easter night too. And then you'll see some chariots running on dirt with some real horsepower. Those guys are running 6 horses in those chariots, 2-wheeled chariots, with no roll cages, no nothing. And they can have spindles on their wheels that's cut the spokes out of the other guys.
Stop it, Steve.
So if I want to see some real dirt track racing, I may just flip off of Bristol and go turn on Ben-Hur.
Yeah, Ryan, do you agree, disagree? Think I'm a dumbass for anything I said?
No, I don't.
Nobody thinks you're a dumbass, Joe.
I think the thing that, a lot of people do allude to when it comes to dirt track racing is, quite a bit of these guys come up that way. That's the purest form of oval racing that people start out young and then turn into NASCAR drivers here in the United States. Other places do kart racing, and there's some drivers that started out kart racing, especially in California with Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. But to directly compare them and then hope that somehow NASCAR adopts some of those rules because, like you said, they like what they see on Saturday nights and then hope that translates to NASCAR. I just simply don't think that it does. And I think it works for the trucks because it's a one-time event spectacle and you need something to draw in people to watch a lower series race. I don't think it's good for the Cup Series. I think at your ultimate series, you want it to be at its purest form, and that is stock car racing. And I think that, as we're talking about the Dirt Series race coming up, I think it's just it's more of an entertainment value. It degrades the prestigiousness that is stock car racing versus, it sounds like something the WWE would do with a table ladders and chairs match versus an actual race, especially on a lot of people's favorite track in Bristol.
Yeah, it's kind of like instead of having a death cage match in WWE, they'd have one of those, what's those bubble balls you get at McDonald's or Chuck E. Cheese.
They'd
have you fighting one of those. No, but you brought something up. I just want to, again, Ryan, Joe, I don't care. I mean, I'll watch racing in any kind of form, but Ryan, you talked about a lot of these drivers, you know, like Larson and Christopher Bell. A lot of these guys came up dirt track racing, right? There's a handful of these younger drivers. Okay, well, first off, they did it in cars that were built to run on dirt. All right, the sprint cars they run, the midgets they run are dirt cars. That's specific. It's like, let's don't take a NASCAR and throw it on NHRA and put it on a quarter-mile drag strip. It's going to get its ass handed to it by a gremlin. My Ford can probably outrun these things my Ram truck with a Hemi engine can keep pace with a NASCAR in a quarter mile. Then I'll get blown away.
And if Ty gives rear ends it, it'll blow up.
It might.
Hey, I think
all I'm saying is,
I think the best. Yeah, no, I think the best thing we could do is kind of wrapping up Martinsville. As a race fan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a free pass to NASCAR for this past weekend in the performance. I really mean, I said it earlier. I think we got extremely spoiled as race fans the first 7 races of the year. And we watched some really good racing. I think we've seen races that boring before. Anybody that's ever been to Kentucky Speedway over here in Sparta, Kentucky, and watched some of those races over there, those got extremely boring and monotonous several years. And that's probably the reason why there's no race there anymore. Well, I know that's the reason why there's no race there anymore. Because that son of a bitch right there in that picture, we go over there and win 3 races every weekend for 10 years and lead, 200 laps of every race. So, we've all watched boring racing. I think we should give NASCAR a pass for this weekend. One last thing, wrapping up this weekend, though, that I do want to talk about. And,
it's autograph, Steve.
I like it.
Steve, Ryan, what has been your take and your thoughts on the race coverage by Fox? Because I got an opinion on this, and I want to see if it aligns with yours. Steve, I'll let you go first.
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know that I really have an opinion on it. I don't pay much attention to it. I wish they had a different way of scrolling through what drivers in the whole full fields in what position. I think they focus on the top 20 too much and don't get down below. And I'm not so worried about if my guy's 6 laps down, 7 laps down. It's if he makes a pit stop and he's coming back up through the field, where is he at in the field and how fast is he moving up? How soon before he gets into the top 20. And then as a fan or somebody who does the show, I can sit there and knowledge maybe can he get back into a good position before the next caution, which is a planned caution, be it a segment caution or something along those lines. I don't really have a lot of opinion on I don't know. I don't think about it. I mean, I'm okay with Boyer. I think he's kind of funny. They've been experimenting with a new co-host, the third guy. They screwing with that, Right now, my favorite is Danica Patrick, just because she's Danica Patrick,
Well, I do have an opinion, but Ryan, I'm going to let you give yours first.
I think that I used to love Fox. I used to love their presentation. I thought, they were good.
Tristan!
For the sport, and I thought that Darrell Waltrip really helped the sport. And then after Darrell left, I thought Jeff Gordon really helped the sport.
Well, you know what? You're in luck, because you know who's broadcasting the third guy this week in Bristol?
And I couldn't be happier.
DW.
Couldn't be happier.
I'm excited. I'm going to watch the race just to hear DW again. I'm thrilled to death about that. I mean, I heard that he was going to be the guest commentator, and I'm thinking, finally, get somebody in there, because Chad Canal sucks. So, but go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Too.
Yeah, well, he was better than Canals.
I like Tony.
But,
I like Tony. Go ahead, Ryan.
I like Tony. Go ahead, Ryan.
No, I think that the coverage of Fox this year, if you ever watch the pregame show, number one, don't. It's awful. The pre-race stuff is absolutely terrible. It's child's play on a sport that I like to take serious. I don't take it too serious because I do like to have a good time, but it's literally cringy late night television worthy stuff that they try to pull off. And
You don't
you know,
like
I look
Michael
at the other
Spitwalk?
motorsports, and I don't mind that. I don't mind that. It's just the other segments and stuff like that. Michael's got a personality, and Michael does great for the Xfinity and truck races when he calls
Yeah.
those. It's the
Yeah, he
other
does.
gimmicky
I
skits
put
and
Michael
things
up
like
there
that.
in the first spot. Yeah,
But you know
right
what?
now I'd put him.
NASCAR stole that from the guy that does the F1 pre-race on Sky News or Sky Sports or whatever, because
Yeah,
that guy's
but
doing.
they're awful. They're
Yeah.
awful because none of the drivers will talk to them.
Yeah, nobody will talk to
They
him.
have to get permission. They have to get the PR person. Or may we talk to the driver, please?
Yeah.
No,
No,
he's taking
No,
a dump.
but anyway, go
You
ahead.
can't. Go ahead.
Now, I think that the thing that NASCAR on Fox does the worst, and that's showing action outside of like 3 drivers in a race. I don't know what it
I agree.
is. When
Agreed.
you're watching a race, they have these pre-plans set up. This is what we're following. This is who we're following. And you have no idea what else is going on in the track. I would recommend to people get the NASCAR app, turn on MRN, and turn your TV all the way down. MRN and the radio broadcast that they do, those are guys that love that sport, first and foremost. Not saying that the others
Moody and
don't,
his
but
crew.
you can tell. Yes, Dave Moody for MRN or Doug Rice for PRN.
Doug Rice.
I think that
yeah.
they do such a great job. And what's happened is now NBC has brought that radio broadcast forward to how they do television. Jeff Burton will be in a certain turn. Dale Earnhardt Jr. will be in a certain turn. They bring Doug Moody on to be in a certain turn. And I think they adopted that because it's so popular and it works out so well. And it's instead of 3 guys in the booth just typically talking about random stuff like who's going to win Clint Boyer's fake briefcase full of money this week.
Right.
It's guys actually talking about the race throughout the entire track versus 1 or 2 pit battles or absolutely nothing where you're just staring at somebody's bumper and then somebody finally does wreck and Fox never catches it.
I want to hit on that because that's kind of where I guess my rant would come from. I care not as much about the commentary because, like you said, Steve, half the time I'm tuning them out because I got my phone or my laptop out sitting in my lap trying to see. Like this week, Denny Hamlin ran a bad race. I had picked him last week, and I try to keep up with the drivers that I pick. And he won a lap, down, and he was in the lucky dog position for a while. And I kept saying if he could maintain that position, he'd get his lap back. He's back in this race, being a short
Next thing
track.
you know, he's 2 laps down, and you don't
Next
know
thing
why.
you know, he's 2 laps down. You don't know why because you haven't seen anybody out of the top 20
I thought that too.
for 150 laps, which is, I mean, scroll through everybody. It doesn't take that much time. You don't have to scroll through the top 20 and then start over with the top 20 again. Another thing.
You see Joe playing right into what you said based on how well I did in points this week in my picks. All of my drivers were down below 20th place anyway.
Yeah. So you didn't even know where they were at.
Hamlin, Harvick, and Truex were all down there, and I was like, where the hell are these guys?
Yeah.
Are they making up any ground at all? I don't know. Fox won't show me.
Right.
So I go to the NASCAR. I go to my NASCAR app on my phone,
right,
and actually pull up the live race leaderboard right there, and then I can follow them and find them.
Right, but
so another thing you can't stand is that damn we're going to go side by side with a commercial. That's an automatic. You know how you have the previous channel button on your remote? I go right to Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Anyway. I put a stopwatch on for 60 seconds or 120 seconds and watch 2 minutes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians and then go back to the racing.
And you shouldn't have to have your phone out while you're watching a broadcast on a major network of a race. I mean,
no.
And I'll say this, Dirt Vision does a better job at broadcasting races than Fox has done this year. because anybody that's attended races, we're all smart enough to be able to go to a race, even at a short track, and see the entirety of the race and what's going on. I'm sick of watching the same 2 or 3 cars every week and their bumpers going around the track, especially at a boring race. Maybe the coverage of the race would be a little bit better if you zoom out a little bit and let us see the whole damn race and what's going on and find our drivers. We know the paint schemes. We know the damn numbers, Fox. Let us watch the race. You know, I'm getting mad again because this is how pissed off I was during the race. And if my wife's watching right now, she's laughing her ass off because I was so close to throwing shit watching that race that I had to get up and walk down the hallway a couple times saying, Fox is going to give me a heart attack. I got high blood pressure anyway, and they don't know how to broadcast a damn race. It was pissing me off. So if anybody happens to come across us on Facebook or YouTube or iHeartRadio or all the other places that this show streams out to, and you work for Fox and you have anything to do with the broadcasting, let us watch the damn race. That's all I got. I mean,
I got one more thing to add to that, Joe.
Go ahead.
I think that a serious disservice was done to a certain member that works at Fox, and that's Larry McReynolds. I think that's a guy that does everything about these cars, every single car.
Why don't they have him in the booth?
He used to be in the booth, and he was great. It used to be Mike Joy, DW, and Larry Mack. And I thought that you had a guy, right, you had a guy that raced, a guy that knows how to operate the race from the top of the pit box, and then you got a guy that just absolutely loves motorsports, and Mike Joy, who has a great voice. And all three of those had enough of a personality that it wasn't a drag. They all cohesive together, and maybe Larry Mack has decided that he wanted to step down from that. But you're watching this, and the reason why MRN and PRN is such better things is because they do go through every driver, because they have to talk the entire time. Otherwise, you're going to turn it off. So they're talking about what you're talking about, Joe. Why is Denny Hamlin running 25th and about to get lapped down in the first stage? If you're watching TV, you have no clue. You have none. Exactly. Number one, how do you get there? And number two, why is he staying there? If you're listening to the radio, they're telling you what's happening on the radio with his crew chief, and they're also telling you what he's facing right now in his car. And during a race on Fox, you'll never know. You'll just know, he's not having a good run today. That's all you're hearing.
Right. Fox is catering to the new fans, the fans of the sport, that they take every broadcast with the approach of, we got to pretend like these 2, 3, 4 million people, whatever we could be, that are watching have never seen a race before. And they don't care about this. What they care about is our antics and our comedy show that we're putting in the booth, and that's all they care about. And they'll cut to some in-car cameras that you can ride around with. Well, I'm sorry. I don't care about riding in the in-car camera of the 27th place car for 50 laps. And I don't care about the race for the 22nd position that of the 2 cars that are a lap down. Like I said, I want you to zoom out, especially at a short track, and let me watch the race. I mean, you lose so much. You lose so much of one of the greatest things about short track racing is to watch all the bumping, watch all the runs off the corners, bumping into people, seeing the action. And when you're focused in on the same car's bumper for 60, 70 laps at a time, you're not seeing anything but that car's bumper. So
half the time at Fox Racing, the best thing that they do is their segment of Crank It Up, which is typically like a minute. And that's just listening to the cars and listening to the radio. Yeah, and they could literally run half the race that way, and fans would be appreciative of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so.
I agree. Yeah. Anyway, I think this. I think that Boyer. I think Boyer in the booth with McReynolds would be a great combo, because I think McReynolds would make Boyer be a little more serious about what a race car driver does. Right now, Boyer just tries to outwit and out humor the other guests in the booth with him. Mike Joy just stands out and does his own thing, calls the race, does a great job. I mean, I'd be lost without Mike Joy calling NASCAR races. Until we get into the NBC portion of it, then you adapt. Who calls him for an NBC? I can't even think.
Rick Allen.
Rick Allen, okay. Yeah, but those guys, but then I think Boyer would still be funny because he is relatively funny for a driver. And he was a good choice for just pure color. But you put McReynolds in there with him to technical things up a little bit, to talk about why things are happening, what's it mean to snap a rear tie rod that we haven't seen before, or when you're taking 2 rounds of wedge out. You know, McReynolds can tell you, what does that mean? What does that do to a car?
Yep.
You know, whereas now nobody said he took out 2 rounds, you know, and left the wrench in, you know, and that's all you get. Okay, what does it mean when you take 2 wrenches, two rounds out of a wedge? You know, you don't get that. Yep. And I think McReynolds would add so much to that and make that broadcast a lot better.
To your point, Steve, this is a brand new car that we're all trying to learn together.
We're all trying to learn about.
We just all found out you couldn't put tape. We just all found out you couldn't put real tape on a car last week.
Tape, yeah. So, McReynolds up there explaining that. Well, this is why you can't do that. You know, and he explains why you can't. And then we aren't over here bitching last week, fighting over whether they should be allowed to put tape on or not. Well, it's a rule. Well, it's a stupid rule. I agree with both assessments. It is a rule, but it is a stupid rule. But with McReynolds explaining it to you, maybe it's not. It's an understandable rule. Right. Oh, that makes sense why they do it. Yeah. I still don't agree with it, that they should be penalized so heavily for it, but I understand now why they're making that rule. We don't know that. None of us really know what the big pain in the ass is about putting tape on these grills now. You know, so you're right. McReynolds would be but yeah, I got the feeling Larry Mack's kind of enjoying doing his part from Charlotte Studios, which is where he and the girl that does it with him, what's her name? Can't think of her name.
Talking about Shannon Spake.
Shannon Spake, and the old driver, the number 1 car for McDonald's. What's his name? I can't think.
Oh, Jamie McMurray.
They're all sitting in a studio in Charlotte. They're not even at the track.
When you said that, I said, "What? Bill Elliott?"
Yeah, well, him too. I'd like to hear Bill do it.
Yeah, would.
Hey, Bill doing color would be great.
Hey, listen, we're just over an hour. I think we've argued about that race about as much as we could. All right. Let's move on to Bristol. But before we do, let's wrap up the points and talk about the points a little bit. Currently, in the point standings, and I'm going to go with drivers that have a win. Currently, William Byron has 2 wins. He's in the first position. Ross Chastain has a win. Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, Kyle Larson, Austin Cedric. Those are the first 10 positions and playoff spots that have been taken thus far. Currently, number 10? 1 in points. Yeah, number 10? 1 in points. What?
There's only 7.
There's only been 8.
7. Well, no, one's a double
races. Those are
7 different races.
7 different. William Byron's the only 2 race winner right now.
Well, how'd you get to 10?
I didn't. I said 7. Austin said
you said 10.
No, I didn't. I said in the 8th position. Regardless,
you said 10, Joe. He's right. You did say 10. You said that's the top 10.
Well, maybe I had a mini stroke. In the 7th
position, I do fact checking.
In the 7th position, Austin Cedric's in the 7th position. In the 8th position, all right, but number 1 in points currently is Chase Elliott. So Chase Elliott right now, if we ended the race now, would make the playoffs. But I want to go.
But in playoff points, he's number 2. He is number 2 in playoff points right now.
Right. Well,
because he technically is in the playoffs, so point-wise, he's number 2. He just got to get a win to lock that in.
Right. Listen,
that's all.
So, right, but the person that's number 1
You're talking a boy.
I'm not, but the person that's number 1 has a win. So Chase Elliott is the first driver that would get in on points currently. So
no, he doesn't. Byron has 2 wins. Jesus God.
Okay, so he has 2 wins. He has a win. William Byron has a win. He's not worried about points, is what I'm saying, Steve. Damn it.
2 wins.
He has 2 wins. Point standings and playoff standings.
That's not the point I'm making.
Point standings and playoff standings.
The point I'm making right now is Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch. are still without a win. They're in the top 16, but unless they get a win, I don't think they make the playoffs this year.
And I'll bet you $100 cash right now that all but one of those drivers will have a win by the time the season's over. I can't tell you which one won't, but I will tell you all of them will but one. I'm not going to say 100% because you never say everybody, everything, ever. There's certain words you don't use, but I would bet 90% of those drivers you just mentioned will have wins.
And as it stands right now, Brad Keselowski could get a win and still not make the playoffs.
He's a dangerous enough driver. He could. He runs the super speedways good.
Yeah, he does, but he's 31st in points, so he's not even cracking the top 25. He's got a long way to go to get there. He was hit hard, and he was hit hard. I think it came out this
that
week.
penalty.
Yeah. And Ryan, you found out, or we all found out this week that was actually he altered a body part, which was the tail fin. Is that correct, Ryan? So
what happened was, due to the part shortage at the beginning of the year, and now this is their side of it. We don't know NASCAR's side. There was a part shortage at the beginning of the year. Stewart-Haas Racing even came out and said, we got one vehicle for the Daytona 500. And so RFK, new team, new owner, or, partial owner now, and Brad, they had a damaged tail fin, and they tried to alter it. That's one of the things you cannot alter. They sent to NASCAR and said, hey, this is why we alter it. That's the number one reason why they went ahead and appealed the fine and said, this is why we didn't have the resources due to the fact that what's going on today. NASCAR said, nope, nobody's allowed to alter this. Don't care if it's broke or not. And they said, all right, you're right. We're not going to appeal it any further. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's RFK's story.
Yeah, and I think that's a bad answer by NASCAR. That if you can't make enough parts available, I mean, a lot of teams went to Daytona with only one backup car for the team. There were multiple teams that did that, or did not. Every car did not have a backup car on its hauler. Like Hendrick may have had two for all four cars because they can wrap those cars, in hours in a night. So that's no big deal. But yeah, there's kinks and bugs to work out. But yeah, I think I still hold to my credo that it's going to take a win to get in this year. I think all 16 spots will be filled by winners. Too many good people left out there that have not won yet. Too many cars are going to get a win. I mean, Elliott's going to get a win at some point in time. That Kyle's going to get a win. Kyle's too good a driver not to muster up a win somewhere. Truex is going to get a win. Hamlin's got his win. Harvick is going to eke one out. There's a lot of young drivers out there that got good equipment.
The good Kyle's got to win.
Good Kyle.
The good Kyle's got to win.
Larson. Kyle Larson's the biggest joke in race. This guy shouldn't even be in racing.
Hey, let's move on to dirt this week.
Bristol. Now we have to get off of that.
Yeah, now we're moving on. But before we do, I want to remind everybody that The Grueling Truth is sponsored by Betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. Also, if you're watching and you enjoy the show, feel free to comment on any of the talking points that we're talking about, and go ahead and like or share our video out or our show out as you please on whatever platform you may be listening or watching on. So, guys, it's Bristol,
can I
baby.
Make a comment on that?
Yeah, sure.
Just be real careful, everybody. Don't say you don't like Joe because he's very sensitive.
Yeah,
he would not take it well. Ryan and I can handle all the crappy comments you'll have back on us. Look at Ryan sitting back there. I really don't care. I spent 4 years with Bob Knight. There ain't nothing you can say to me that's going to. I've been friends with Joe, with Mike Goodpaster for over 7 years. There ain't nothing anybody can say to me that's going to hurt my feelings.
Right. And my feelings will get hurt. Dan Kornhauser and Sam Teets did the NFL draft show last night. And Ryan, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the NASCAR show, I'm going to quote Dan Kornhauser, the NASCAR show is a good show. Those three guys know their shit, is what Dan Kornhauser said. So he said, go ahead and watch that show with Steve and company. So we are just company to Steve. So Ryan. And if you happen to be watching, which I doubt you are, my name is Joe Spilman. That's Ryan Peters. And of course, Steve. So I think he left.
I'll have him know. I know that Steve's got his own hardware. Sectional champion coach right here. JV baseball.
Good for you.
So see that, Dan? You see that, Dan? That's hardware. We got 4 of those in Switzerland County history. And I was a part of that one, the 25% since we've been in school.
Yeah,
you guys aren't getting this right. You know where you know where Dan's from?
New Jersey, right?
I have no idea.
New Jersey. He lives in New Jersey. Did you ever watch The Sopranos? Those people don't take too kindly to this kind of gruff you guys are feeding Dan right now.
I'm just like
he's liable to send a couple of his buddies to Vive.
Right.
We have an Amish mafia.
We got the Amish mafia. We're not
the Amish mafia. Okay.
So that's right.
How many horsepower is that? They don't have a 550 package.
If you're watching, Dan, we are okay with being called Steve and Company. That's okay. We're all right with that.
Should be.
Anyway, let's talk about Bristol. Let's talk about Bristol a little bit.
Haven't we already talked about Bristol?
We have, but it's a segment in the show, Steve, and you screwed the whole damn show up by talking about Bristol, and I don't know what you started talking about in the beginning. Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott running the truck race, and we're not done with the minor league, whatever the hell rant you went on earlier. But we have to cover the segment, and we have a segment that ends the show or rounds out the show that we talk about the race that is coming up. And even though we've spent the majority of the show bitching about NASCAR and what they can do, we still need to talk about Bristol. So let's talk about
it. You first? Or?
You first, Joe.
Oh,
go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I don't know what to talk about because we've already covered everything. I will say, here's what I'll say. I enjoy watching dirt track racing, whether it be the NASCAR Cup Series, the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, whatever series it is. If you put a car on dirt, I'm going to watch it because I am a dirt track fan, and I always have been. I do agree with the point that we made earlier that I don't know that the Cup Series is the right place to have a dirt race. I agree with the King and Kyle Busch that maybe dirt takes the top series in NASCAR backward. I don't think that there's a place for it. And to allude to my rant earlier about dirt track racing and stock car racing, NASCAR being a different sport, it is. I think when we got to watch the trucks at Eldora, I think it was new. I think it was enjoyable. And I think it was something that brought in viewers for a truck race every year. And they did have good viewership for the Eldora race. If you, for whatever channel it was on every year, like Fox Sports 2, if you subscribe to that channel, you got to watch the race. But I don't know that the Cup Series should be running on dirt, especially at Bristol. And like we talked about last week, if you are going to have a dirt track race, let's do it on a real dirt track now. Let's not truck in loads of dirt at a fine Bristol short track that has incredible racing anyway. Throw 10,000
That's banks like this.
Yeah, throw 10,000 truckloads of dirt on it and have a stock car race on the dirt and try to manufacture excitement. Bristol was exciting enough. We don't need to put dirt down. I know the World of Outlaws has a major race every year at Bristol. That's fun to watch. But yeah, I don't think that this is something we need to do. I think, I used to go to Bristol every year. I haven't been in several years. But I haven't been in a dirt race because last year was the first year for it. And I don't know how I would like it if I was there. I mean, if I want to watch dirt racing, I'll go to Lawrenceburg Speedway on Friday and Saturday night. I think they probably should have kept it with the trucks and let the Xfinity and the Cup Series run the race at Bristol as it was intended to be since they paved the track. Steve?
Yeah, I enjoy watching dirt track for cars with cars that are built for. I used to live about bicycle distance from the Indiana State Fairgrounds up in Indianapolis, and they always had the Holman 100 or the Hoosier 100 with then it became the AJ 400 when they used the sprints and they used the dirt, the horse track dirt up there, because they would do Saluki racing in Indiana. And that was fun to watch those cars power slide through all the way through a corner. Used to go and watch the AMA races up there, the motorcycles, the big Harley 750s, 1,000cc bikes, where they literally rode through the turns with one knee scraping the ground all the way, where they would wear lead knee pads.
Wide open throttle.
Wide open throttle power. That bike, the handlebar was almost hitting the dirt.
Yeah.
They laid those bikes down so much. That was dirt track racing.
Yeah.
That was fun. You had 5 bikes or five sprint cars or midgets out on that track, all of them lined up in a row, 5 across, 5 wide, powering through the turn. And same with the bikes. And those cars are built for it. These cars are just not built for this. I agree with Joe. It's sad because it's a waste of a great short track. The banking on Bristol, the Coliseum effect, the upstart success that NASCAR is having now with these new cars. I think it would just be a lot more fun to watch a Bristol night race Sunday night. What a great way to finish up Easter. As far as I'm concerned, would be just it's Bristol baby. It's a night race at Bristol. You run it on the concrete. If you got to throw a PJ1 down there, you could 2 grooves. That's become a 2-groove track, I think. Or I'd throw a PJ1 down there and give them 2 grooves, because the banking turns, that track can handle 2 grooves a lot easier than Martinsville can. And I'd be all for that. You'll get great racing. You get a lot of bump and run, a lot of bent fenders. I'd be all for it, but it is what it is. NASCAR has gone commercial. They're putting on a show rather than making good racing. The world of difference. Dan?
Yep.
Or Dan, I'm sorry.
Dan made the show again.
Yeah. Well, Dan and I have an agreement.
Well, I'm glad.
Go ahead, company.
I don't mention his partner. He doesn't mention my partners. We got an agreement. So Dan and his buddy up there do a great job on the NFL Pick'em show, or the NFL
draft show,
mock draft.
Yeah, it is.
Go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Monday nights.
That's all right. Last week's Kyle is now going to give his opinion. So I think that, first off, if you want to watch you have the heats for qualifying on Saturday. I think that should be said. And then you have the Cup race on Sunday. So it's a different schedule than you're normally used to. And again, even that's kind of screwed up to me. You should have your heats and then you're racing in the same night. That's, if you're going to make it a dirt race, do it dirt. Do your heats at the beginning, do your racing at the end. But they're separating it to where heats on Saturday, racing's on Sunday. So whatever they want to do with that. Another reason why we like dirt track racing is the cars are exponentially smaller and they have like 7 different lines they can run. They literally have 2 lines they can run and they barely get sideways. So I'm just not a fan of this. I mean, nobody ever in their mind would have said, what does NASCAR need to do to become better? Nobody would, not one person would have said, oh, you need to take away the Bristol night race. That'll do it.
Agreed.
So,
this is an answer to a problem that they didn't have. I agree with you.
Right. And I just find it really disappointing, and if they want to do one race a year where they put everybody in a dirt vehicle and see what the hell happens, do that for the All-Star race. I'd watch that. If you put them all in a World of Outlaw or a sprint car or something like that, what the point of the Outlaw is just to give away money anyway. So just do something different like that. If they want to do a touring car or something, if they want to put them in rallycross or something like that, to make it see what these drivers can do on separate vehicles or separate tracks. That's fine. Make that your all-star race. Don't add it into the middle of your regular season, especially taking away one of the best tracks. But, we're NASCAR fans. We're going to watch, and, we may bitch about it afterwards if it's not a great race. Last year, they had a lot of trouble when number one for weather. Obviously, there was like a torrential downpour the very first night they had it.
Right.
I think this will help out Chase Elliott because you don't have pit stops. You just have breaks in the racing. So that'll be really hard for Alan Gustafson to screw things up. So I think Chase Elliott will have a chance this week along with Ryan Blaney. Chase Elliott should have like 4 wins this year, but he has a crew chief that has really struggled. We'll just put it that way. And if Chase Elliott isn't in the Final Four this year, I think Alan Gustafson could possibly be looking for a new place of employment, except for on the 9-pit box. So
yeah, he probably should be.
There's things to see.
Ryan, you know how big of a Chase Elliott fan I am? I 100% agree with you. This is not on Chase Elliott's fault he hadn't won yet. He has not been given a race car for an entire race. He dominates well, anyway, we're getting off on a sidetrack. You are right.
Yeah, so that's the reason I have him as we'll go to our picks. I'll just go ahead and start with mine. I got Christopher Bell. I'm going to choose.
Yeah, wait. Let me say one thing to kind of wrap up the Bristol thing, and they're trying to be ingenuitive and creative and put something different on the track. Aside from the big races, what's the most fun, cool weekend NASCAR has now? I think, and let's see if anybody of you come up with the same answer.
The most fun, cool weekend?
Yeah.
Throwback at Darlington's my favorite.
Bingo. Throwback at Darlington. Labor Day weekend. Throw the cars back. Put them in old paint schemes. Run those cars of what Petty ran in his day, what Earnhardt ran, what Bobby Labonte ran, what put the Valvoline car back in that Martin ran. Get, Tiny Lund's car. All those old cars. The Bobby Ozzy's car with K&K Insurance. That's NASCAR's fun and game weekend.
I guess I didn't understand your question.
Put all those cars back in their old configuration, old style, get them looking, put the paint, the wrap them. And to me, I look forward to that weekend as much as any, just to see the old paint schemes. Who's going to come up with Walter's Tide car?
I agree with you, Steve.
Or the Coors Light car.
That is throwing back. That's throwing back to the roots.
Yeah, that's tribute, not a dirt track. Tribute to them is putting those cars back on in the paint schemes. Leave the cars alone. Let them run where they run best. But just change the paint scheme.
Steve, we got
Christ
about three.
Almighty.
We got about
This weekend, they're actually putting mud flaps on the cars.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. But anyway, we got about 3 minutes.
They're putting mud flaps on NASCARs.
Steve,
no, that's another 20 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
I don't put mud flaps on my truck. It's a pickup truck. It's supposed to spray mud. It's not a Ford Ranger.
Hey,
all right?
We got to get to
you want mud flaps on that, Mr. Risley? Fuck no. It's a pickup truck. Not Rolls Royce.
Anyway, Ryan.
I want mud off my back wheels.
I agree with you 100%. The All-Star.
All right, go on. Make your picks.
Put other drivers in different cars, especially with the Dirt Series. The only thing that concerns me is most of those drivers have probably not ever driven a sprint car, and they probably wind up killing themselves in it. But
use Darlington and the throwback weekend as your homage to the roots of the sport, and leave it at that.
Ryan,
move on.
You get to give the picks this week first. Go ahead.
I got Christopher Bell. He races on dirt. I got Kyle Larson. He races on dirt. Alex Bowman has raced on dirt. I got Tyler Reddick. Somebody likes to run high lines. I think, multiple grooves could be possibly used if this actually is a dirt race. And then I got Chase Elliott. He's been running really good. He typically does pretty solid at Bristol itself. So I'm going to pick him, and he doesn't have to worry about goofed up son for ruining his race.
That's right. So I got Bell, Larson, Bowman, Elliott. I missed that fourth driver you said, or third driver. I'm sorry.
Bell, Elliott, Larson, Bowman, Reddick.
Reddick. Reddick is a dirt driver, isn't he?
He likes to run the high line. That's what I like.
Yeah. All right, Steve, you want to give your picks, or you want me to go
Sure,
first?
no problem. I agree with Larson. I agree with Bell. I agree with Elliott. I'm going to make two different picks here. I'm going to go with last year's winner to repeat, possibly Logano. He ran well last year. I don't know why he can't do it again. May still be a little bit ahead of the game. And I'm going to take Blaney. Blaney is hot as can be right now. And I think he grew up enough, has that dirt mentality enough, not like a Larson or something like that, like a Christopher Bell or a Larson. I think Larson and Bell got to be your two favorites. So my five are Blaney, Logano, Elliott, Bell, and Larson.
Great pick, Steve. I agree with you on you got to pick the last year's winner. I think that's always smart to do. I kind of rounded out my top five this week, and I kind of exclusively looked at who runs well on dirt. So I picked three drivers that do, and that was Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, and Kyle Larson. I'm going to put Elliott in my top five this week, and then also I am going to go with Logano as well. I think you have to pick last year's winner. So we're all pretty close. It looks like really.
You guys never picked Michael McDowell for Daytona. I don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah, it's because I don't like him. So, I mean, in closing, I think either way, I think Bristol this weekend is going to be a fun race to watch. I mean, it's still a dirt race, whether or not we agree they should be there. I'm looking forward to it. Are we going to do a post-race show? The race is at 7:00 at night on Sunday, so I don't know if we're wanting to do a post-race show after the race or not.
I'm not. It's only 4:00 my time, so by the time the race is over, it'll only be 7. I mean, I'll still have time to watch Ben Hur. I want to see some real dirt racing.
I don't mind
Ben Hur
doing
won't
it.
come on till 8:00 locally.
I mean, we're looking at 11:30.
Yeah, that's fine.
You want to? Okay.
If we got good numbers, what's wrong with doing it on a Monday? You guys got baseball again.
Yeah, we Monday's pretty busy.
Yeah.
We're gonna have baseball, softball.
Okay.
I think
Well,
we're actually
I'm
announcing
good.
the game Monday.
We'll just make it subject to the race and the weather there and everything else too. Because if it's a rain delay, we'll just have to stay tuned.
We'll get and we will send out a notification on all the platforms. If
I'm good to go.
Do a post race show. Okay, so let's plan right now at 11:30 Sunday for our post race show. That should give us plenty of time. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I appreciate everybody tuning in with us. I want you to remember that the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. If you enjoyed our show, please like and subscribe and follow on all the platforms that we're currently on, or you can catch our podcast on iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, or wherever you may find any major podcasting site. For Steve Risley and Ryan Peters, I'm Joe Spilman. Thank you for watching.